Hello, welcome to Full Moon Movies. Today I'm revisiting a film that's as haunting as it is masterfully crafted, Seven, now released in beautifully remastered 4K edition to mark its 30th anniversary with none other than David Fincher himself overseeing the restoration. Now this isn't just a 4K upgrade. This is Fincher going back to one of his earliest defining works and giving it the preservation and polish it deserves, something collectors and cinephiles can appreciate deeply. From the opening credits alone, you know Seven isn't interested in being a conventional crime thriller. It creeps up on you much like the city it's set in, decaying, unnamed, and soaked in perpetual rain. Now, that bleak atmosphere becomes a character of its own. But what truly pulls you is its slow burn tension between the two leads. Detective Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, is a man who has been swallowed by the city's cynicism. You feel it in his silences, in the way he looks at the world not with fear but fatigue. In fact, he's not jaded in the typical movie cop way, he is exhausted. And then there's Detective Mills, played by a young Brad Pitt, who at the time was still carving out his name. Now, his performance as Mills is relentless, emotional, and raw. Where Somerset withdraws, Mills charges it. Where Somerset studies, Mills reacts. Now, the film is essentially built around this ideological tug of war, optimism versus resignation, and it plays out across every scene they share until the final act when that contrast shatters into something irreversible. One of the quieter moments, more affecting subplots in the film is the relationship Somerset begins to form with Tracy Mills, played by Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, there's a tenderness in the scenes they share, a moment where the hard, worn-down detective becomes a reluctant father figure or counselor. Now, Tracy confides in him not because of his badge, but because she senses he still holds some thread of humanity in a world that seems to be unraveling. Somerset listens not just as a colleague of her husband, but as someone who understands despair intimately. Now, this subtle emotional link adds layers to his character. Basically, he's not just the voice of experience in the case, but a quiet witness to the emotional cost it takes on those around them. It also deepens the tragedy that unfolds in the final act, giving Tracy's fate even more weight, not just to Mills, but to Somerset himself. And yet, what makes Seven unforgettable isn't just the protagonist, it's the antagonist we barely see. Kevin, portrayed as Joe Doe, only arrives in the last stretch of the film, but his presence is deeply embedded from the beginning. Through his crimes, his silence, and his precision, we understand he's not just trying to kill, but he's trying to say something, and that's what makes him terrifying. By the time he appears on screen, it's almost as if the city itself has summoned him, as if all the filth and apathy has taken physical form. Now, that kind of build-up, where a character controls the story without being present, is a testament to Fincher's directorial grip. He makes you feel like the evil is already in the room, even when no one's there. Now, what you see in Seven is a director which fully controls the mood and frame. Fincher doesn't rush anything. He lets the camera linger, breathe, and absorb. Now, there are scenes where you expect action and instead you get restrained. Tight close-ups, long silences, the kind of moments that make you uncomfortable not because of what you see, but because of what's withheld. The cinematography by Darius Conji is grimy, grainy, but gorgeous. The kind of visual language that influenced an entire wave of thrillers that came after. In this new 4K version, you can really appreciate the detail, the texture of the rain-slick streets, the warm hue and of the crime scene lights, the way shadows carve across faces. It all looks like looking at an old photograph that someone has finally cleaned the glass over. Fincher has also corrected a few things in this remaster that he wanted to fix since the original release, like the smoothing over blown out windows and adjusting background sharpness. Now, there are subtle changes, but they do something important. They allow some kind of atmosphere to feel consistent without distracting the visual noise. There's even a shot where the double used for Kevin in a white scene has been digitally replaced, ensuring visual continuity without fanfare. It's all done with care, not with gimmicks. The sound design remains minimal but immersive. Howard Shaw's score moves in and out like a whisper, not telling you what to feel but lingering beneath each scene like a pulse. The DTS HD audio track on the disc handles those nuances perfectly. Dialogue is crisp, ambient tones are sharp, and the heavy-weighted silence of certain scenes is preserved without compression. Now, as a physical collector, I have to say the packaging of this new 4K Digipack is equal parts beautiful and frustrating. Designed with a magnetic fold-up panel, the outer design is rich with symbolic elements from the film. The deadly scenes, the final scenes, desert isolation, the reflection subtly in the artwork. Now, it's almost like unfolding a cursed manuscript. But the disc slots are really very tight here, tucked into a thin cardboard sleeves that could really scratch the disc over time. Now, it's a strange oversight in otherwise a premium presentation. It looks stunning on the shelf, but practicality suffers. When Seven first hit theaters in 1995, it was a surprise success. With a modest budget of 33 million, it went to earn over 327 million worldwide. Critics praised its style and storytelling, though there was some discomfort too, especially with the final act. A common critic that still lingers in that Seven is too bleak, too hopeless, that it offers no redemption, no light at the end of the tunnel. And that was the critique. And that's really fair, but for many of us, that's what makes it resonate. The ending isn't shocking, but it is loud. It's shocking because it feels true to the world the film has built. Somerset's closing line still echoes decades later. The world is a fine place and worth fighting for. I agree with the second part. In fact, when thinking about Seven, I can't help but recall how other films tried to explore similar psychological terrain. Training Day comes into mind. There's a familiar clash between idealism and hard-earned cynicism in how Denzel Washington's Alonzo and Ethan Hawke's Jake interact. Much like Mills and Somerset, except Training Days ramps up the heat through street-level corruption, where Seven keeps its tension quiet and festering in a darkened atmosphere and rain-soaked alleys. Now there's also Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann, which also carries that sense of obsession dread where solving a crime feels more like a descending into it. You watch characters lose themselves in the hunt, and the enemy is less of a person that basically becomes a reflection of something buried inside. That's very much how Seven operates. John Doe isn't just a villain, but he's a personification of every failing Mills and Somerset try to deny. And I think about No Country for Old Men too. Tommy Lee Jones, as Ed Tom Bells, walks away not in defeat but confusion. Like Somerset, he's a man who no longer understands the world's cruelty. There's no neat ending, just silence, acceptance, and reflection. Now that is same emotional afterlust lingers in Seven. Now you don't get a closure, you get consequences. And when you watch these two characters, Ed and Somerset, side by side, you realize that they are both standing at the edge of the same existential cliff, descent, men stranded in a world that no longer makes them moral sense to them. Now, there's of course Zodiac, another Fincher film, could be also viewed as a natural twin for Seven, a quieter, more methodological exploration of obsession, anxiety, and inability to control fate. Seven gives you similarly a closure by breaking you. Zodiac denies your closure entirely. Now, all these films share a mood, but Seven is unique in how it blends dread, pace, and moral crisis into one streamlined descent. It's stylized, yes, but never stylized for its own sake. Now, as for the new 4K restoration, the descent is even clearer, even sharper. It's not a film that just sits on your shelf, but it's one that stays under your skin. Now, thanks for watching Full Moon Movies. Let me know in the comments if you have picked up this 4K edition or how Seven hits you for the first time when you watched it. And if you're just discovering it, well, brace yourself, not everything stays in the box. Now, this movie is a must-watch.